we're going to look at classifications of real numbers. Now, what is a real number? Well, a real number is any number on the number line, which means any number you can think of, any number you know is a real number. It's usually at this point that somebody says, well, are there fake numbers? And what you will learn in high school, you will be introduced to a set called the imaginary numbers. So there are real numbers, there are imaginary numbers. If you did the partner practice in class the other day and you tried to take the square root of a negative and you had to put that it was no answer, the square root of negative is where imaginary numbers come in. But we don't have to worry about those in Algebra 1. We're going to deal with real numbers. Now the first set of real numbers, the first subset, the first type, are called the natural numbers. These are the numbers that you learned as a toddler. These are the counting numbers. Think about how you learned to count. You started counting, and mom or dad or somebody would say, count to 10, and you'd go 1, 2, 3, 4, and you'd keep counting as high as you knew. Those are the natural numbers. They're the numbers you first learn when you start learning about numbers. Now, later, you learned another number to put with that, and you were introduced to the whole numbers. The whole numbers are all the natural numbers plus the number 0. So the whole numbers start with 0, and that ... means they continue forever. So if you'll notice, every natural number is also a whole number. The whole numbers have 0, the natural numbers don't. So you were happy you worked with the whole numbers for lots of years. You learned to add, subtract, multiply, divide. Life was good. And then somewhere along the way, maybe 6th grade, maybe before, you were introduced to negatives. And at that point, you learned about the integers. And the integers are all the whole numbers. So everything that's a whole number is an integer. And it's their opposites. So that means all the negatives. So the integers go forever in the negative direction. -3, -2, -1. 0 is an integer. And then all the positive whole numbers. Okay? You dealt a lot with these last year in 7th grade. You learned how to add, subtract, multiply, and divide positive and negative numbers, and you dealt with integers. Now, when we put these type numbers with fractions and decimals, we get what are called the rational numbers. Now, if you'll look at the word rational, it has the word ratio in it. A rational number is any number that can be written as a fraction. So, what kind of numbers are rational numbers? Well, integers are rational numbers. Can you write an integer as a fraction? Sure you can. You put it over 1. Can you write a whole number as a fraction? Yep, put it over 1. Well, a fraction is obviously a fraction, so that is a rational number. And there are 2 types of decimals that are rational numbers. Terminating decimals. You did a lot of converting between terminating decimals and fractions. Like this, you would say 1 and 25 over 100, and then you would simplify it. That is a rational number. And the other type of decimal that is a rational number are repeating decimals. So -2.7 repeating. That can be written as a fraction. So the rational numbers are very broad. They include all of these, natural, whole, and integers, plus they include fractions, terminating decimals, and repeating decimals. The last set of numbers that we want to learn about are the irrational numbers. And if rational numbers can be written as a fraction, irrational numbers cannot be written as fractions. So these are decimals that don't terminate, don't repeat. We cannot write them as fractions. The most popular, the most famous of all irrational numbers is pi. It is a decimal that never terminates, never repeats. It cannot be written as a fraction. It is irrational. One of the first things that was proven to be irrational long time ago is the square root of 2. If it is a non-perfect square, it is irrational. We've talked about estimating these, and we came up with decimal approximations, but if you type these in your calculator and it's not a perfect square, you get big, ugly, long decimals that fill up your calculator screen. Those are irrational numbers. If we take a non-perfect square, put a negative in front of it, that would be an irrational number. You might see a decimal that has a pattern, but it is not a repeating decimal. So for example, if I have 0.12, that has a pattern, but it's not a repeating decimal. There's not something that repeats over and over. That is an irrational number. So what you need to know right now, you need to know these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 groups of numbers and the types of numbers that fit into them.